Welcome to Midweek Extra with your host Rob Gutman, who is actually turning it again into a award-winning gutter Midweek Extra mashup. Not quite sure why. The boffins back at Tour HQ have decided it needs to be a mashup. Actually, I have worked out what am I talking about. It's because we got a specific sponsor for this show, and the sponsor for this show is Saily. What is Saily? I hear you say. Saily is a new eSIM service app from our friends at NordVPN, where you can choose from several affordable eSIM plans in over 200 countries and 8 regions. I feel like I'm channeling John Gibbo here, but I'm going to keep doing it. I can't do a Gibbo impression because John does this better than me. If you've ever struggled to find Wi-Fi abroad or return from a holiday to a nasty mobile phone bill, you'll understand what a difference a local SIM card can make. Andy Heaton looking at me like I'm something he's picked up off his shoe. An eSIM provides an internet connection wherever you travel and also saves you money on roaming fees. Now, Jake Nolan, who's joining me, did you also know that there's a 24-hour chat support available should you have any issues? And, Jake Nolan, you will get a full refund if your eSIM isn't fully compatible.
Wow, sail away.
Well, Mike Kearney, all you need to do to get started is download the Saily app on your phone. Beth, all you need to do is scroll through the plans and choose the best one for you and then follow the instructions on the app to install the eSIM. The Saily eSIM will then be activated instantly, Mike, when you land at your destination, however you've gone. So, Mike, download Saily in the App Store by scanning the QR code on the screen. Use code TAW at checkout to get 15% off your first purchase. All of the details are also in the episode description box, Beth.
Wow.
I can have a little lie down, Andy, rightly clapping me. One man, Beth and his family, who definitely availed themselves of the Saily Magic eSIMs were the family Wirtz on their recent trip to the UK. I think we can safely guess that, according to reports that can either be confirmed or denied. Did you, Beth, read that crazy post on Bayern Space on Twitter yesterday? I can't read the whole thing out. It's too long. Go and find it, listeners, if you want. It's, at Bayern Space. Did you see this thing?
I did. And to be fair, my favourite thing about this whole saga was I then clicked on the account. And, it says, you've got mutual followers, and the one mutual follower was Rob Gutman.
Hey.
And I was like,
only since yesterday.
It's so, but it's just so on brand, and I love it. I love how invested that you are, that he is now the number one transfer source. Or she, could be a she. That's not
They have 8 and a bit thousand followers, so they can't be total spoofers. This is what I'm using on the law of Twitter /X. But I think it was you brought it to my attention, Andy, yesterday. Andy, you haven't got a mic in front of you, but nod if that's true. You did, yeah. It was a fascinating one. Have you read it, Mike Keane? I want somebody to summarise it for me without making me read
have, yeah. It did feel like it was, I don't know. It felt more thoroughly written than it would be if it was a spoofer.
So much detail, wasn't there?
So much detail, but that can, I'm sure we could all put our heads together in this.
It was longer than the Saily spiel I've just read out, so I can't do it.
Yeah. No, but I'm sure, Rob, you're tactical now. So of the transfer market, you could make an account. You may or may not be into Kalia. Who knows? You know what I mean? This
can confirm I'm not because we and him have been in the same room. In fact, I've seen him a few ways. Lovely man.
But so that's what I mean. It's one of them. It will only be true if it all plays out the way he said, and then if he does, he goes, well, that was I always knew, and then someone might say, oh, he's just guessing, and he's got a lucky guess. Who knows? It did feel.
It's a peak internet moment, I think. Can I just read one paragraph? Let me stop because I've just found one where you could just sort of, and this is probably only 10% of the entire post, which he's obviously paid to breach the 140 character Twitter thing, and he's got 1,400 characters, I'd say. They said, it's also worth mentioning that Bayern had quietly been working on potential signing for Julian Wirtz's. Let me start. Apparently says Bayern had quietly been working on a potential signing of Juliane Wirtz, Florian's sister, from Werder Bremen for their women's team. The move was intended to help him settle more comfortably in Munich. Negotiations with Bremen were already advanced and contract details have been worked out, but that idea has now completely been shelved. But why has it been shelved, Beth? Because he's going to Liverpool and she's going to have to come to the Liverpool women's team.
Wow. I don't think I even picked up on that.
Did you not get to that bit?
No. I think...
Why would you? Because it was a very,
it was the 100th part on the tweet. I mean, it obviously does seem like a lot of the noise that has been coming out over the past week or so regarding Wirtz has been quite positive from a Liverpool perspective. They obviously are genuinely interested in him, and have registered that interest with the player and with Leverkusen. So yeah, who knows? I still think Bayern obviously have done the majority of the legwork, and I would be surprised if he didn't end up at Bayern. But then strange things have happened. So
I've moved past that phase. I'm now to full on. I think we're favourites. The bookies have us.
I'm having that.
That's why I'm going to you next, Jake. Winking at you. We're both 7 to us and Bayern, according to the bookies. Those that are bothering to put the markets on this have us both at 7-4. I just think it's moving in a direction. I did a long tweet myself. X. What do you call a tweet now?
I still call them tweets.
Yeah, it can only be called a tweet. An expletive. I like that one. There's no thought of that. I did one of them things yesterday, which I was trying to sort of just to sort of help my own thought process, and because I also wanted to be insulted on the internet, as I need that fix. I think Bayern have been trying to play a game which I think Liverpool down the years have tried to play, where they talk to a player, maybe well in advance of a prospective move, and get him to a position, him and his agent, whereby Liverpool FC are in theory the only destination, and then try to force the hand of the selling club. I mean, we sort of tried to do that with Virgil van Dijk back in the day and came unstuck for a while over it. So I think what they've said to Wirtz is, yeah, we want you, and of course you want to play for the mighty Bayern Munich, and he's gone, yeah, who wouldn't? And they've gone, that's fine, let's just leave it at that. We're either going to get you in the summer, or if your club take the piss, we'll get you a year later. You down with that? And him and his agent have gone, yeah, that's fine. And I think that's worked as an in theory and kept Bayern very confident until it's collided with the reality of Bayer Leverkusen going, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've seen that tweet yesterday, which you're referring to, but...
My one?
Yeah, well, not your one, the other one. And I think, to be honest with you, I've only got attention span of four lines now since becoming a father. So I didn't read it all, but there is a tweet that's going around that I did see, which I thought was really interesting, that Bayern Leverkusen haven't sold a player to Munich since 2004, which feels like a bit of a stance. And I know just from...
Do you know who it was they sold to Leverkusen?
Was it Lucio?
Yeah, that prick.
Come on.
Do you remember?
Good knowledge, that, innit?
Knocked us out. It's because you read the article this morning, so did I.
I didn't. It's because I've dedicated my life to knowing knowledge like that, which suits me no purposes whatsoever.
Why is he famous in our history, Mr. Knowledge?
Lucio. He scored against Man United.
Scored against us, knocked us out of the Champions League in 2002 semi-final, I think it was. Or quarter-final, sorry. Sorry, I interrupted. Anyway, so you know that fact. Go on.
Know that fact, yeah. But I think there's a stance against Munich really coming from the rest of Germany, isn't it? Obviously, we know that they've kind of dominated that league and the money and the players and stuff like that, but it seems like a lot of the other clubs, particularly Leverkusen, Dortmund, Leipzig, are having their little bit of a go with the Red Bull money, aren't they? Where they want it to be more competitive, and they don't want to sell players to the rivals, and I think that's completely understandable. I think fans have kind of had enough of it as well in Germany, so I think that goes in our favour. And I imagine with the deal this big, that there's tons and tons of commercials that come with it as well. I know Muller's just left Bayern, so they'll want a kind of poster boy German Addy wearing forward type player who scores loads of goals, and they've got that there potentially, but so will Liverpool. I think it's dead interesting. And going back to the brass tacks of being a footballer, I think he just suits us loads from what I've seen. I mentioned when we did the show last week or the week before that it wouldn't surprise me if Liverpool start trying to sign players who can play in a couple of different positions in the total football-esque thing, and it's like that's what he could do. He could play 10, he could play 9, do a bit of it all, and I just think it makes loads of sense.
Makes all the sense. I mean, I think he's an incredible player, Mike, but it's trying to understand the likelihood of this happening or not, just for my own mental health, to be honest with you. I think it would be, I could stay cynical and believe in it's all about Bayern theory, but for the fact that Florian and possibly, or him or his agent, his father, got on the plane and came and spoke to Liverpool directly. Why would you do that if you were 1,000% committed to Bayern Munich? I'm not sure you do.
Look, I think you'd be daft to close yourself off to the current champions of England, who are flying, did really well this year in Europe, lost to what could be the potential winners on pens after a period where they were knackered. Look, play really good football, probably suit you. He apparently had chat with Manchester City. Again, they've been up and about, haven't they, in Europe over the last 5-6 years. So, Real Madrid, all these teams that, like, if they display an interest in me as a player, I'd probably be like, well, yeah, let's see what they've got to say. Unless I'm like playing for Liverpool in my personal position, then it's Liverpool only,
Mike,
essentially.
If you'd given your word to Liverpool, how do you think Liverpool would take it if they then found out you got on a plane to chat to Real Madrid?
Who's saying he's give his word? I don't think he has.
Well, Bayern are saying that, more or less. They're all but briefing that. I think that's fair to say.
They're out in the market. I think some of the senior fellas are basically out them in the press.
So I think what he has done is quietly, is in inverted commas, disrespect Bayern. And he's entitled to do so, you can argue. But I think if you're back at Bayern HQ, you're going, fuck me. I thought we had him boxed. He was telling us that we were the only club for him.
Could that also just be a reflection of sort of arrogance of them? That, like, he said he's interested, so he's ours. Like, he may have said, yeah, I'll come, no danger. Put the bid in, get them accepted, I'll be there.
Yeah.
But he may also have just said, yeah, I'm open to the idea of playing for you. And, it's obviously a historic club in Germany, massive, and all that. But him as a player has won the Bundesliga, and him winning the Bundesliga with Bayern will probably be a bit different to winning it with Leverkusen, the way they did.
Less special,
almost certainly, but still an achievement. And Harry Kane's made up this weekend, just gone by or whatever. He's won a title, but that was born in Bayern's long list of titles, where it's maybe thinking, yeah, I've said I would be open to, because I think if you're a German lad, you're probably daft if Bayern come in and interested. It would be flattering. And of course you'd be interested in playing for them, but then also, like I've just said, he might think, I've won the Bundesliga, I might want to go and have a go somewhere else now. And he's still young. He knows he could go back to Germany at some point in the future. I don't get the feeling he would have said, yes, I'm definitely playing for Bayern. I think Bayern are sort of using a little bit of like old school. Oh, yeah, he said he's interested, so that means he wants to play for us. We're the only team in Germany. Who else are you going to play for in Germany? And that sort of gets them players for years and years and years. Lewandowski, Mario Götze. You go back, it's to the beginning of their dominance in Germany. It probably happened years and years and years, like in the 80s as well, probably you'd say. 70s, 80s, whatever, 90s, when they started getting massive. I just can't. I don't think the lad would have said and fully committed to, especially knowing that, what sort of money he could command personally, right, that he could get anywhere else around Europe.
Right, but this is where I think it's interesting what the game Bayern are potentially playing is Beth, because Bayern aren't PSG. They don't have the money of the Gulf state clubs. They want to engineer value. We've seen them. They haggled and haggled over Harry Kane. What did they get him for? £85 million, I think, at the end of the day. I think that's still their record transfer fee. Leverkusen have slapped this price of what in sterling equivalent to about 126 million on Wirtz now. I think that genuinely causes Bayern a problem. And I think they want to force Leverkusen's hand to drop that price by making them think they'll get him at half that next year, but something less than that now. And their leverage is the player. And where this deal is getting complicated, and where Liverpool are definitely seeing a prospect of success here, is because Bayern don't want to pay this fee. And I think that's, and you combine that with the fact that Leverkusen, for them, it'd be a win-win if Bayern don't want to pay the fee, because they don't want to sell to them, as we've reiterated. I think I don't want to give myself or all of us false hope, but I feel it's moving in a direction.
Yeah, I think it obviously massively depends on the player and how much he does want to play for Bayern Munich. And listen, as the guys have said, he's young enough that he could move to the Premier League now, play in the Premier League for 5-6 seasons, and then still have a good few years going back and playing for Munich, playing back in the Bundesliga. So,
Real Madrid could go anywhere in 5 or 6 years.
Exactly. So, it's not necessarily like this is his one chance to move to a big club. He's the greatest of respect to Leverkusen, because they've obviously done some fantastic things over the past couple of seasons. But he will have plenty of opportunities for the next decade, really. But yeah, I think a lot depends on him and how insistent he is on Bayern Munich, because, like you say, if Munich are the only team at the negotiating table, and that obviously strengthens their hand massively, in the sense that certainly as the summer goes on, if no one else is putting a bid in for him, and the players, I only want Bayern, and they're saying, right, well, we'll give you 90 million instead of 126 million, then Leverkusen might have to look at that and think, yeah, like, we'll probably let him go. Whereas, obviously, if the player's more open to a move elsewhere, including to the Premier League and to Liverpool, if Liverpool were then to say, right, well, we'll offer you 90 million, and Bayern say we'll offer you 90 million, then, you know, it will very much come down to what the player wants, because the club obviously will be far more keen to do business with Liverpool than they would be with Bayern. So yeah, I guess it just depends how much he has his heart set on moving to Munich.
The bit that I read that was the most interesting was apparently his dad his agent or something like that. Yeah. Apparently was underwhelmed by companies' plan for him.
Yeah, I read that.
And extremely blown away by Slots. And I think there's a legitimate thing there. I think if you look at their team now, he'd play in one of Kane or Musiala's position. It's a bit like, how do you fit all them in the team? How does that work? Where he comes to Liverpool, I think straight away you see where he comes in and makes an impact, and it also looks like a load of fun playing for us at the minute, doesn't it? Which probably helps. So I think that's the most interesting thing for me.
I also think, that point about, he's already obviously won the Bundesliga with Leverkusen and winning it with Bayern. I'm not saying it wouldn't be incredible, especially for a German lad, but having done it in the way that they did, I don't think anything will top that. So then you look at the Champions League and you think, well, which club looks like they're probably in the better position to go on and win the Champions League at some point in the next 2
Bit of a dirty move as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's leaving a club to go to a bigger club in your same country. You might want to tarnish his legacy at Leverkusen.
Yeah.
I'll stay with you on it, Bethan. I feel that the intriguing, potentially the biggest obstacle to Liverpool getting this deal done is maybe not so much Bayern Munich in the here and now this summer, but the extent of the players' desire to move this summer or not. How much does he think it's essential to get out of Leverkusen now or not? That's the X factor here for me. His manager's gone. Not that he wouldn't have been able to anticipate that when he spoke to Bayern about, because the word on the street coming out from Bayern is that they were going to do a deal this summer or next summer, and they were relaxed with either. Let's take that as true. Is the player now as relaxed with that as he might have been, say, 6 months ago? That's what I'm asking myself. Because I'm saying the manager has gone from, it's rumoured he's going to Real Madrid to he is going to Real Madrid. He's seeing Frimpong going. Is Jonathan Tah's going? I think there's talk of Hincapie's agents.
Exodus, isn't there?
So I wonder if the player's changed his mind on being relaxed over staying one more year at Leverkusen, and that's precipitating this crisis, in inverted commas, from a Bayern point of view.
Yeah, I think probably as he is seeing all of those people that he's played with and his manager moving on, he maybe is thinking, he's getting itchy feet a little bit and thinks, well, what if I get an injury this season? What if I don't play particularly well this season? Will that opportunity still be? I'm sure it will. He's an incredibly, incredibly gifted player, but maybe he is starting to think, well, actually, I would quite like to go this summer. And then, you don't know then if his camp is saying to Bayern, well, you'll have to pay up for me this summer if you want me.
Yeah.
And then
I think that's the crux.
It's whether Bayern can and are willing to do that.
You see, I think that's the crux, and I think that's where we are at this position. I think Bayern have gone to his camp, well, no, not if the price isn't right. We want you, but only when the price is right. And his camp have turned round and gone, well, if that's your attitude, Bayern, we're going to look at other options. And I think that's what the game we're seeing playing out is. And if Liverpool stick to their guns and say, we will pay the full price, that doesn't make us sweat at all, then Bayern are going to have a decision to make. Okay, let's move on from Florian. I hope we're going to be coming back to him for a while longer, because it's one of the most exciting links, I think, of modern times. Can't remember when we last were in for such a big fish. Anyway, let's move on to another big fish that's been rumoured to be on the market. Start with you on this one, Mike. Rodrigo at Real Madrid. Sort of happened the last couple of days. Seems like Real Madrid could do with some dough, would like to get him out the door. They're touting an €80 million fee, £67 million, where the usual suspects are being linked to him: Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea. Is he a player that should be interesting us? Do you think we're a credible destination for him?
There's a story out there that he had the chance to come to Liverpool as a youngster, like 16, 17, something like that, wasn't there? I think he said that himself. So I think interest is genuine, which is probably why you're seeing the likes of our names definitely in that list anyway.
How old's he now? 24-ish?
I think so, yeah. I don't think he's any older than that anyway. But he's a sort of player that, like, you know, he's at Real Madrid, so he's got Vinicius next to him, he's had Mbappe next to him this season. You know, he's used to playing with good players, but then he still has big moments for Real Madrid, doesn't he? He scores the goal against City in the semi-final where they do that mad comeback, doesn't he, do the when they go on to beat us in Paris 2022, when I think is when they beat City semi-final. He plays well. He's still a very capable player, and that seems like a reasonable price, doesn't it, for what you'd say they could be demanding for. He's not. I don't think he's banging the door down to be the best player in the world. But I think you can also tag on to the end of that sentence. Yet, you know, it's one of them things where we saw Mo Salah and he wasn't doing the same thing, wasn't banging the door down to be the best player in the world, and all of a sudden he is, because of his hard work, his determination, the squad fitting him, the way we played, all of his tools being made best out of, and his determination, you know, in himself to push himself further and further. So I wouldn't say no to this sign. I think it would be sensible, future planning, because we don't know how long we're going to have Mo Salah at Liverpool for, even though we know we signed a 2-year deal. Is that 2 years that we're definitely getting him with another extension? I hope so, because he's been a fantastic player to watch, and hopefully he continues being so. But if you get more good players in at that level that can kick on again and scale the numbers, and maybe even become more important than they were in previous teams they played for, then yeah, why not? It's the key to success, isn't it? Getting players that can play better in your team.
Yeah, I'm happy for us to be linked to players of this quality, Jake. I mean, why do you think Real Madrid are deeming him expendable?
Probably because they got other bigger shirt sellers, to be honest with you. More in vogue sort of players like Mbappe and Vinicius. And I think they got Endrick on the bench, who's there's high hopes for as well. So they can't fit them all in, particularly now with signing other big players on big wages that we should not name. So I think you can see why they want to let him go. I think he's a great player, to be honest with you. I think out of the whole Real Madrid spectrum of forwards, he's probably the one who suits Liverpool the most madly. Probably a little bit of the quieter of the other ones, but for me, equally as effective. And actually, there was a period where he was out the team at the start of the year, and the fans were calling him to go back into the team because they missed him that much. So I would love him at Liverpool. Can I see it? Probably not. I don't think it's as likely as some of the other ones. I just think the money, getting involved with Madrid, all those type of things, could probably see him going to somewhere in Italy or somewhere in London, to be honest.
Is he right-sided still, predominantly?
Yeah. He plays right side, but I think he could quite comfortably do left side. The only reason he doesn't is because Vinicius and Mbappe tend to do that. But he's more of the hard work and less frills of those type of players. But for me, I think I'm right in saying he still scored 20 plus goals last season, still really important this season. And I think if he came to Liverpool, he'd be an absolute superstar. But I just think some of the other lads who we're going to go on to mention are probably a little bit more likely. I don't think we get Wirtz and Rodrigo. I just don't see that. I think John Emery would pass out.
Well, he's not. We're not going to play him on the right wing if we got Rodrigo, and we're not going to play him as a 10 if we got Wirtz, and he's not a 9. So that just leaves him for the left wing position for Liverpool, and then you've got to make a decision on one of Gakpo or Diaz, really. I mean, there are still these rumours about Diaz and Barcelona are persisting. Do you buy that? I mean, there's talk that Hansi Flick says he's his number one target, but there was also something that said that Diaz would love to play for Barcelona, but more or less doesn't want to be pissed about with their sort of money worries and their sort of whether they can register player stuff. So, and he's also been very positive about signing a new contract. Yeah,
I think the interest from Spain in him is absolutely genuine. But I also, for me, if I was working for Barcelona, to me, it's not a move that would make massive sense because Liverpool will stick at least probably a 60 million price tag on Luis Diaz, maybe even more than that. And I know obviously he's 28, he's not over the hill yet, but the policy that they have, the financial struggles that they've had, to me, it would make more sense for them to invest in a younger player, maybe.
Also, Rafinha plays that side, doesn't he?
Yeah. Does at the minute,
yeah.
So, I sort of the Diaz stuff, I just sort of think it's one of those things that just seems to crop up every every few months, doesn't it? And it's, maybe not helped by some of the comments that his camp have made over the last couple of years. Mainly his dad's basically just saying he wants to play for Barcelona, which obviously we know a lot of South American players do have that dream. So I think the interest is genuine. If I was Liverpool, I would be looking to keep him. I really don't think it felt like last summer it was maybe a little bit of a crossroads, and you were thinking obviously there were the links to Anthony Gordon, and you could see a world where he moved on. I just think I think he's a valuable asset to Liverpool, and just on the Rodrigo thing. I do agree with Jake. I think there's a lot to like about him, but I think sometimes when we talk about sort of players going to Real Madrid, and obviously with the whole Alexander Arnold saga, people go, oh well, it's Madrid, and there's like this luster about them, and I think sometimes maybe that you have that same thing when you've got a player that's leaving. It's almost, you don't judge them based on how they are sort of week to week. You judge them thinking, oh well, they're a Madrid player, so they must be brilliant. And just had a quick look at his numbers for this season. He's got 6 goals in the Liga this season.
Yeah, it's not earth-shattering, is it?
Which, people have been crying out for Diaz to get more numbers.
I think Darwin got about that.
Yeah, so, I think people, if Liverpool were to go for him, people will be really excited, and there's a chance that it could be a really, he could explode in the Premier League and whatever, but I don't necessarily think he's going to take Liverpool to another level. And I think for the money that he would command, I'm not quite sure. I think it's probably just a convenient link, because if he is on his way out at Madrid, there's probably only a handful of clubs that could, 1, feasibly afford him, and 2, would be attractive to him in his camp. So, I'm not quite sure I'm buying into that one.
I'm not either. There was talk, I think, before the sort of the summer, if you like, the speculation spiral kicked in. We were talking a lot about, well, obviously Liverpool need a number 9 to replace Darwin Núñez. Come to you on it, Jake. But you could see Liverpool buying a sort of all-purpose wide player who could play across the positions. But the more we drill down towards Liverpool's needs and wants, I don't think that's going to be the case. Because I think you've got Diaz and Gakpo probably, to all intents and purposes, have got that side boxed. Salah's got his side boxed. We've now bringing in Frimpong. Frimpong may be the only wide man we bring in this summer. He gives us some cover for Salah. I think all Liverpool's attacking aspirations in the market are going to be with central players, be they 10s or 9s.
Yeah, I agree to a certain extent. But go back to my point earlier about people playing in multiple positions, or at least having different functions. I think they'll probably be looking to sign forwards, as in. But
let me make a distinction for you before you carry on. I think, let's take a Nico Williams, who's very much a wide player. It's not like you can buy him and go, we'll stick him in as a 10. I think you'd be utterly wasting that kind of buy and that kind of investment required.
Yeah, I agree, but it wouldn't surprise me if you did your 15 minutes away from home as a 9. You know what I mean? I think, depending on the player, I think pretend to have different functions. I think, you've seen similar type of thing with Rashford going to Villa away from home, put him down the middle. And I think Liverpool will be looking at players in a similar type of light. I think they will be identifying areas, like you say, like we need, I think, like a hole in the head, we need somebody who can go down the middle for us. But ultimately, I think it'll be like, let's sign him and he can do a little bit out left, or can he do a little bit out right if Salah goes to the African Cup of Nations? Those type of things.
Sure.
I think they'll be looking at it, and to be honest with you, I think that's more of a slotism than it is, a sort of Michael Edwards data ladsism. I think he'd be looking at things in like the sort of total football-esque style, where it's like, can lads do jobs in different positions? Have they got different functions? And I think if you look at the lads we've been linked to, nearly all of them play in 1 or 2 positions, you know what I mean? Rather than just having one sole function of, he's a number 9, he heads the ball in, he does that. They have various sort of purposes, can do different jobs on the pitch.
I think, I think that's true, Mike. If I look at I'm just going to rattle off some names that we've been linked to quite repetitively in recent weeks. Obviously, Florian Wirtz. Ekitike is a room that won't go away. João Pedro has come back into play this week. Who am I missing? I mean, we'll come on to talk about Julian Alvarez in a bit, but not that I think there's much in that one. But the sort of players we're getting linked to, whilst they may have a bit of pace and may be able to do a bit out wide, as Jake said, our players are spending their careers in central attacking positions. I think that's the shape of things to come. We seem to be less and less linked to players like, I name-check Nico Williams, less and less to players like Semenyo. Can't think of any other obvious wide men who would... Yeah, the obvious wide pace merchants are not the guys that we're getting linked to. We're getting linked to central players, be they 10s or 9s.
I don't know, I think I've seen Alvarez do stuff for City out wide. I think more at Atletico, he's been more in the middle, hasn't he? I think.
But they didn't play him as a winger, though. I mean, there's attacking from a wide position. Like Darwin Núñez can do that, but...
It's like, I suppose the Thierry Henry question, was he a winger?
Yeah.
No, he just liked to go out that way and drift back in, didn't he? So I suppose that they are probably more of I've thrown Henry out there as like a name. Obviously, it's some way to get to that level or be even compared to him. But
though.
that is the sort of what attacker profile maybe is what we're after. Torres did the same thing, didn't he? Really?
Yeah.
Like, so it is. I think sort of that level. I've not seen an awful lot of Ekitike. I'd be more enthused, I think, around an Alvarez, Pedro. I think he's a good player. I don't know if he would come in and sort of do a Mane sort of picking his numbers up and really running with it or not. I think he's also homegrown as well.
Is he?
Yeah, he was at Watford, wasn't he, for years, I think. And then I think he played left mid for Watford a couple of times. It's one of them things where...
He's had an injury record, hasn't he, Pedro, a bit? Well, he did last season. What about this one?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting name, isn't it? But for the prices that we're probably going to be paying, I think I've even seen us linked with that Ekitike for 80, 90 million quid.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Is that how much they want for it?
Yeah. I think Alvarez would be probably similar. Maybe we could do a Núñez diddle there, because I think he just smells of Atletico Madrid Núñez. Like he
reeks.
Yeah, reeks of Atletico Madrid.
He'd be brilliant there, you get like 30 goals a season.
Get 5 red cards a season.
Yeah.
Statues of him.
He suits the manager very, very well.
The thing, can I just, with Alvarez, let me just cut across you and come back in. The chairman said this week, even though the various media sources keep tentatively linking us to it, but the Atleti chairman said, Julian Alvarez is very happy here. He is our player and he will remain our player. He was raised at Atletico Madrid and he will die at Atletico Madrid. I mean...
Was he raised? Wasn't he bought from Argentina? But
yeah,
didn't City buy him from Argentina?
I don't know about raised.
He's trying to say, like, we've given him his career, maybe.
Elevated is maybe the word, is translation. Yeah. Die, though, I don't know, the translation seems quite literal there. Die. So he's not getting a transfer unless he wants to die. Which I don't think he would.
No, I mean, very, very much against the idea of that, to be fair.
So I'm kind of knocking Julian Alvarez on the head there for you.
But it depends if he wants one. Then let's go find... The shift in football over the years is like the player power. As much as you've got a 5-6 year deal, if you just say, I want out, what can a football club do? You either not play you, they still got to pay you. So they're either going to like... to basically find the best terms to sell you on their terms, not your terms, even though the player will say,
it doesn't make much sense, but if we were putting into ChatGPT that there's one player to ensure that Liverpool retain the league title next season, he'd be the one who I think would come up. I think he'd just be absolutely perfect for us, and he's got that sort of cult star about him, a Suarez, Firmino style sort of player that we love.
But he decided the Northwest wasn't for him, though.
Well, I was gonna that to me is the biggest drawback. I can't see him pushing for a move to England because he didn't like the weather in Manchester.
It feels a year or two too soon as well for me. Like, he's only just started ripping it up there. Was it last season he goes?
Yes.
Yeah. So it for me it feels a year or two too soon. But one can dream, Rob.
Yeah, it's a weird one that it won't go away as a rumour, but, the Germans been as categorical as you can be. Whether the Darwin Núñez unlocks a deal, but I doubt it. I think they'd probably like to have them both. Should we just move away from forwards now, just to sort of round the show off? I want to talk about defenders. The Konate situation, we're all sort of, I don't know, what's the word, Beth? Sort of keeping quiet on it and just hoping it'll go away, but it can't go away. There's some speculation that Liverpool want it wrapped up this summer, and you can understand why, because he's only got the 1 year left. Let me just read what a keeper said. The ball is in the club's court, I think, according to Konate's entourage. That would suggest that they want to do a deal with Liverpool, but there's the spectre of Real Madrid. There
is. I mean, how much the Dean Howson deal impacts that? I don't know, mate. The need to get Konate is probably less pressing. I also think, if you're Real Madrid and you're trying to get one of either Konate or Saliba, I'd be leaning more toward getting Saliba. I think he's maybe got a slightly higher ceiling than Konate has. He's better on the ball.
When's he out of contract though?
It might be the following summer, 2027. Yeah. So yeah, the Konate one is difficult. I think. I think someone said on a show the other week, Liverpool could make it very hard for him, particularly ahead of a World Cup year, in saying, well, either you sign and you play, or you don't sign and you just sit on the bench all season. That to me doesn't feel like a very Liverpool thing to do. I think even if he doesn't sign, I think they'll carry on playing him, and I think they probably should, because then otherwise they still have to go out into the market and get another defender. So. I think he'll sign. I just think it's maybe getting these details nailed down. But Liverpool absolutely don't want to be losing another player on a free transfer to Real Madrid next summer.
Well, okay, I think that's the general wisdom on it. But I do wonder about something. I'll stay with you on it. If Konate doesn't want to move, say he just does have his eye on Real Madrid next summer, and they want him to stay put and get him on a free. So, and he won't let Liverpool sell him. And as you said, Liverpool don't tend to be spiteful in these situations. I think Liverpool, in fact, I even forget that. I think Liverpool wouldn't want to sell, might actually prefer them to let him see out his contract and get rid this summer, even if they got a fee, because they don't want to give themselves too much to do in the market in terms of defender. We'd love to have got, if Howson was through the door now, fine, but there don't seem to be any obvious alternative candidates who could do the job Konate's doing for us. And to buy themselves at least another year's worth of time to find a replacement might suit them better than getting an actual fee.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think even with Konate staying, and even if he stays long term, Liverpool need to sign another defender this summer. If he goes this summer, then they probably need to sign two defenders this summer. So, like you say, I think while there aren't too many outstanding candidates on the market, I think they'd be much better keeping hold of him, and particularly because if they sell him this summer, obviously with only 1 year left on his contract, they probably aren't going to get a crazy fee for him.
No.
And the thing is, it's who do they sell him to? Because Madrid won't pay for him. I don't think. I think it's the same thing with Trent Alexander-Arnold. I don't think Real Madrid would have paid for Trent Alexander-Arnold. I don't believe that they sort of saw him as that much of a game changer that they would have been prepared to pay his market value. And they've spent
money on Howson, so they might not want to spend again.
Well, yeah. So I can't see Real Madrid wanting to pay a lot for Konate this summer if they wanted him. PSG, I suppose, is the other one, and again, it's sort of one of those links that makes sense because it's sort of his boyhood city and his hometown. But yeah, I think it's probably serves Liverpool better to keep hold of him regardless of what happens.
What do you think, Jake? Do you think he signs? It's moving in a more positive direction, whereas I thought he was a goner either this summer or next summer a couple of weeks ago. It seems more positive, the vibes that he might sign again. And you're all about the vibes.
I am all about the vibes, yeah. I think it helps when you win the league and you lift in a league title.
Yeah.
I think that was the difference between maybe 12 months ago when you first starting to have conversations with your Salah and your Van Dijks and the other fella. There wasn't an awful lot in place. It wasn't no reference point of where are we going, really, was there? Because it was almost like rip her up and start again.
Great tune,
mate. Yeah, big fan. And I think ultimately he might just want to be known what happens after Van Dijk goes. What's the succession plan to that? Where can we go from there? And let's be honest with you, are we going to pay him the same amount of wages as what Real Madrid would pay him? And because I'm guessing he's probably on significantly less than that now. Which does come into things, Rob, people's wages, unfortunately. So I think that's a big part of it. But for me, I'm with Beth. I'd say, honestly, when it comes to transfer fees, and I've said the same with Trent, it's not like the money goes in our back pockets. Ultimately, I just want to see good players play for Liverpool, and I don't care if they leave on a free or we get insane money for them. Yeah, great. We can kind of celebrate it, but the most important thing is that it's reinvested and goes in the right places, and we see good players play for Liverpool. So I think whatever happens, we need to sign another centre-half, or like I said before, another centre-half who can maybe do a little bit of full-back, and potentially that should be the player that partners Konate for the next 3 or 4 seasons if he signs on past Van Dijk.
Yeah, last word to you, Mike, then on this and for the show, really. I think as much as anything, Liverpool will be anxious not to have too different a lineup at the beginning of next season. Too much disruption from what has been a winning formula. We know we're going to have a change at right back, because you can count Connor as being a new right back as a minimum, or Frimpong. There's likely to be a change at left back. At the moment, the clever money's on Kirkes. Do Liverpool, and centre forward possibly as well. Do Liverpool really want 3 out of their back 4 to be a different set of lads starting the next season from the ones that lifted the title? The disruption factor.
Probably not on the first day, but I reckon there'll be an acceptance that if we get the players in to be able to bleed them in and be able to finish next season, like the last game of the season's coming up soon. I think it may look a bit different. Like, we might have Kirk we've been linked to heavily left back. It might be Frimpong, it might be Bradley. It could also be a centre half. I think we did need a centre half going into the summer, and the Konate chat is very, very much long-term proof on that plan. Anyway, if he signs the deal, great, but you're still going to need a centre half.
But a covering centre half.
Of course it is, and a covering centre half that could potentially grow and be a full-time centre half is a way to do it, and it doesn't always work, by the way, because we signed Van Dijk, who was ready. We signed Konate when he was young, but basically a starter, even though we had Matip there. It's that sort of ability now. He's getting to that level, isn't he? We've got Konate, we signed another centre half who's maybe 20, 21, 22, something like that, and he can then play alongside Konate future-wise. So yeah, the question was like, will it be that much different, or do the club want it to be that much different? I don't think so. I didn't think we'd go for a 10. I'm talking back to Vert, but I thought we'd get right back, centre back, left back, and a striker. I thought that would have been our business just done. But the opportunity might pop up where we might get a really good midfielder, and our number 6 signing just out the blue popping up, because we can get him now. We've got 80 million, 90 million, whatever it is, on this just player that you can think of. Say, oh, by the way, he wants to play for us. Should we do it? And that's what Richard Hughes was talking about when he first came in, and was talking about opportunism. If a player just pops up that all of a sudden, yes, we would absolutely have you. I think that's what Liverpool will do. But until then, there's a plan in place where we don't spend an awful lot of money. We do like to look after ourselves in terms of selling players as well. So I think the plan is, we're already seeing it in action now in terms of the right back. It's the main piece of the main chunk of money. Like Jake said, I don't think we're going to get Wirtz and a Rodrigo or another striker, but you may get Wirtz and a good centre half, and then you're sort of covering for next summer. And the likelihood is, if Konate signs, then you're already covering for 3 or 4 summers down the line. Then,
okay. Let's see what happens on the Konate situation. Let's see what happens on the Florian Wirtz situation. Most important is my reference there again. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Andy, for producing. And we'll call that a wrap, and we'll see you again very soon.